Okay, thank you so much, Jeremy. I appreciate it. I'm calling our meeting to order, and I need to establish a quorum, so I will call the attendance of the trustees. John Bartolotta.
Here.
Dr. Carbone is not here. Dan DeLoss.
Here.
Barbara Lovenheim, here. Benny Martinez.
Here.
Carla Palumbo.
Here.
Dale Rakoff.
Present.
Grace Tillinghast.
Present.
Alan Williams.
Here.
Good afternoon and welcome to the March meeting of the Board of Trustees of Monroe Community College. The meeting has been called to order and a quorum has been established. I'd like you all to note that Dr. Young's memoir, Tearing Down Fences, The Life of Alice Holloway Young, with the assistance of the Monroe Community College library staff, is being placed in all Monroe County libraries that participate in the urban suburban program. This is a wonderful recognition of the importance of this autobiography of Alice Holloway Young, and also an important coordination between MCC and our community. I would now, whoops, hold on just a second. Yes, there we go. I would now like to introduce Bonadio and give them some time to give their presentation. So if you would like to, Bonadio, we're here.
All right, thank you very much. For those that do not know me, I am Jonathan Miller. I'm the partner responsible for overseeing the audit of the financial statements and the federal awards of the college. Today, I'm joined by Andrew Kelly, who is the manager on the engagement. So in today's presentation, we're going to focus on two items: the results of the audit and key financial trends. We've extracted the critical elements of the 60 pages of financial statements into these 19 pages, but in the interest of time, we're still going to move very, very quickly. So for the individual controlling, I'll just prompt when to get to the screens. We can go through the meeting agenda, and then we can get on to the next page, which is the executive summary. So due to lack of uncertainty on the technical accounting related to the CARES Act and other stimulus programs, and the funding, which was also the funding distributed to the college through the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund and the withholding of the state 20% of operating assistance and TAP funds, there were many ongoing accounting and operational questions that need to be resolved. That's why we're not here in February, but don't worry, it is still looking out my window, snowing out, and it's much winter. So not much change in the month wait. But I am pleased to say with these matters that management was proactive and attentive to these matters. It just took time to receive the appropriate guidance. With that, you can see on this executive summary that I'm pleased to report we did issue an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's a clean audit opinion on the business type activities of the college, as well as the discretely presented component units, which is the association and the foundation. No material weaknesses were identified. There were no adjustments as part of our audit that were identified, and the significant estimates and accounting policies included within the financial statements. So the accounting for the OPEB liability estimate, the pension estimate, the accrued sick time estimate, as well as uncollectible accounts receivable, we deemed those all to be reasonable relative to the financial statements as a whole. And the audit of the federal funds, sometimes called the single audit, the college received approximately $55 million in federal funds this year. Almost 50 million of those were student financial aid. And then this year, there was also the CARES/HERF funding received. Very pleased to report that there were no findings identified during the single audit. So we can scroll down to the next page, the required communications. In the interest of time, this is a very consistent and boilerplate. And what that means is a boilerplate is very good. If this letter was much longer, we'd be having much more discussion. But if we go to the top of the next page, I do want to draw your attention to a few items. One being the sensitive disclosure this year. This year, in footnote 2 to the financial statements, there is a disclosure related to COVID and the uncertainty that is having on the college. For the end user or the reader of the financial statements, it's important to read over that disclosure. Lastly, at the bottom of the screen right now, you see management representations. It's important to realize, as we've talked about some of the uncertainty, some of the estimates, the revenue recognition, that what this letter is saying is that management provides it to us, and they're representing that they take responsibility for the financial statements. The assumptions and estimates are theirs, and they were fully transparent in our inquiries and completing the audit. So with that, we will move to the next page. Oh, keep one more down, please. And the results of audit testing. You'll recall when I met with this group in August, I laid out 5 additional risks related to the pandemic, and they would have an impact on our audit. They relate to revenue recognition, the tuition revenue and government appropriations and collectability, assumptions of the actuarial estimates, a decentralized control environment, and increased complexities related to the federal funds. If you were to read through this entire document, you would see that the college came through successfully all of our additional risks, and they appropriately addressed them. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy, and he is going to walk you through the statement of net position and also the changes from operations.
Thanks, John. So if you scroll down to page 6,
There we go.
So page 6 is your condensed statement of net position in millions. And as a reminder, this is on the full GASB accrual basis of accounting. So it includes a few significant items that you aren't necessarily seeing throughout the year. And those are your capital assets and pension and post-employment or OPEB liabilities. So you can see the capital assets of 185 million as of August 31, 2020, which is included in the non-current asset section towards the top of the page. And your employee pension and OPEB benefits are reflected as deferred outflows, pension liabilities, post-employment liabilities, and deferred inflows. And the deferred inflows and outflows can be a bit difficult to understand. So at a high level, these are essentially timing differences for those two plans and changes in the actuarial assumptions related to those plans, which get amortized over 5 years. So those amounts will eventually be recognized in the years to come. And it's important to note that although you aren't seeing the pension and OPEB liabilities during the year, those do represent amounts that MCC will have to pay in the future. The one other thing I want to draw your attention to on this page is your current ratio, which is a liquidity measure. And that illustrates MCC's ability to pay its liabilities in the coming year using the current assets that you have as of August 31st. And that's calculated as current assets divided by current liabilities, which was around 3-to-1 last year and down slightly this year, but still over 2-to-1, which is generally considered to be healthy. And this is something management can control to an extent, and despite declining enrollment, was kept relatively high this year due to receiving those HERF funds that John mentioned. And it was offset slightly by paying out some of the early retirement incentive benefits during 2020. And if you flip to page 7, we reconcile your unrestricted fund balance as it gets reported to SUNY to what your unrestricted fund balance looks like on the full GASB accrual basis of accounting. So on the 5th line down, you can see 12.1 million of unrestricted fund balance, which is what SUNY saw for as of August 31. And that's down about 2.3 million from last year due to the decrease in revenue of 6 million and a decrease of expense of only 3.7 million. And that is a direct result of the enrollment declines. Then below the SUNY reported fund balance, you can see the significant impact that the pension and OPEB liabilities has on the unrestricted fund balance and the different story this tells when you look at it on the full GASB accrual basis, which shows a negative 190 million for unrestricted net position. And the point of this chart isn't to paint a scary picture, but just to emphasize that there are some key and very real elements of MCC's unrestricted net position that aren't included in the amounts that you get to see throughout the year. And John's going to talk about those a bit further on the next couple of slides.
So when we slide down to the next page, we'll start talking about the post-retirement liabilities, which is your pension and your retiree health. A few key points. With all of your liabilities, the college is currently on a pay-as-you-go. So what that means is you receive an invoice, whether it's from the ERS or the TRS system or your post-retirement health plan, and then you pay that invoice. The liabilities that you're seeing here represent the future expected cash flows that you're going to make in the future. And these are obligations that the employees of the college have earned through today. Under the pension plan, so the college participates in 2 public employee cost sharing plans administered at the state level. The employee retirement system is ERS, and the teachers retirement system is TRS. Both of these plans this year are in a liability position. You can see in the middle of your screen that the TRS plan is at a liability position of 1.7 million, and the ERS plan is at 26 million in a liability position. The significant increase this year, really with both the plans, relate to timing differences in the funded balance because of the investments. The ERS plan had a measurement date of 3/31/20, and many of us can recall that was near the investment low point during the pandemic. When we go down to the next page, what this does is it shows what the plan status is at the plan level and how that liability is allocated to the college. So you can see the plan net position, or think about how many assets they have invested versus the pension liability, what the total plan expects to pay out in the future, and what their funded status is and how that's allocated to the college. Traditionally, TRS has operated above 100% in terms of funding level, and ERS has traditionally operated at least in the mid-90s. The 86% I mentioned earlier does relate to the investment balances declining at that time. And you could say, well, what does this matter to the college? A lot of times what you'll see when the funded status falls behind is more the increases in the invoices or contributions they need from the college in future years out as the funded status takes the time to catch up back to 100%. When we go down to the next page, the retiree health, a few points to point out. Unlike the pension plans, New York State legislation has not adopted legislation that would enable government entities such as the college to establish a qualifying trust. So I talked about earlier how the state pension plans had assets set aside. Well, you're not able to do that in New York State. What the college has done is they've designated net assets, approximately $16.6 million of their own net assets has been designated to pay future obligations. Then in addition, this year, there was an increase in the liability. So you can see it towards the bottom of the screen. The liability at the end of the year is $229 million. The liability increase this year, the primarily driver of the increase in liability was the discount rate. Decrease. Those two have an inverse relationship as you present value what the liability of the future cash flow payments are. So with that, I'm going to go on to some of the key trend information. Okay. So the first chart is your unrestricted fund balance. Now this is what's being reported to SUNY. So you can see if you look to the right, the 2020 column at 12.1 million, that's what Andy discussed about on the previous page. So over the 5-year period, the college was able to increase its fund balance all the way up to 2020, when the enrollment declines and the result of the pandemic required the college to use its fund balance, and that's why it declined. You can see it's a little bit small, but towards the middle of the screen below the first chart, you see that percentage of operating expenses. So you can see 9.5, 11.2, 12.4, 12.1, and 10.4. So that's your fund balance as a percent of total operating expenses. The state controller guidelines for local governments and community college falls in that is between 5 and 15%. So the college has operated over the 5-year period within those guidelines. So the second part is the second chart on this page is the unrestricted revenues and expense. So obviously the red line is the red line is the revenue, the blue line is the expenses. So when the red line is greater than the blue line, that's when you add to fund balance, and vice versa. And when you look at this chart, one of the considerations to make is back in 2016, the college had 12,306 FTEs. In 2020, the college is now reporting at 9,885 FTEs, approximately a 20% decline. This is consistent with the community colleges in upstate New York, and this relates to the demographics in the communities they operate. The college has been able to manage its expense structure, which also includes opening of the downtown campus that provides additional access and opportunity to higher education. But as many of you are aware, and I made remarks earlier about the CARES funding and the higher education emergency relief fund, the college has received a significant amount of money from that. But you do need to think about half of those funds are to be distributed or have been distributed at this point to students for their emergency aid and relief. The other half is clearly marked for expenses that the college incurred that have a clear nexus to an increased cost in delivery of instruction related to the pandemic. So essentially those funds are restricted. Further, someone who audits 3 community colleges and has visibility into the other 11 community colleges our firm audits. I have semi-monthly phone calls with the student controller's office. I have not seen this amount of uncertainty and disruption from the funding sources. I read an article last week in Inside Higher Ed, and what they noted was typically as you see unemployment, the unemployment rate increase, you see increases in enrollment in community colleges. That did not happen with the pandemic. So what this uncertainty means is that management of the college, with your oversight, needs to be thoughtful about the use of the CARES Act funds for the college in the short term and to set it up for long-term success. We'll go through the next few charts fairly quickly. This one is the composition of revenue source. So of all the revenues, where is it coming from? The student share, state share, and the local share. The far right shows the SUNY formula. Next to that is the average for the community colleges. So when you compare MCC to the average in SUNY formula, the students are contributing a greater percentage of the revenue. However, even though that does occur, MCC's tuition rate is in the lower third of all the community colleges. Then we go to the next slide, which includes benchmarking. So what we're doing is we're comparing the expenses of MCC, their operating expenses per FTE, to other upstate community colleges along the thruway. MCC is in the lower third of their expenses. Yes, they do gain some based on their scale and being larger, but this does show that they've been able to manage their expenses. One thing when looking at this chart is you do need to consider that not all these community colleges have the same cost structure. And by what that I mean is, such as an example, is MCC operates 2 campuses, while others might just operate 1 campus. The next slide shows a comparison of the fund balances. So earlier on in this presentation, I talked about what MCC's fund balance is. You can see the peer institutions that we compared MCC to and what their fund balances are. So yes, MCC is in the bottom third, but again, remember that they are operating within the SUNY guidelines. And it will be interesting to see what this chart looks like next year when other entities report if they had to use fund balances during fiscal 2020, much like MCC did. Then the next slide, this just compares and shows all the fund balances in a bar chart. This is just the average of the fund balances. So when you look at 2019 and you see, well, there's about a 6% difference. The couple of the outliers towards the top do bring this average up. As noted on the previous slide, the average for the SUNY community colleges is at 15.4%. And then finishing out on federal funds, I mentioned earlier the significant amount of federal awards that the college receives. This is just another way to paint the picture. $55 million of expenditures, approximately $50 million in student financial aid, and that federal student financial assistance as a percentage of gross student tuition, 112%. That shows how reliant the student of MCC is on federal funding and why it's so important to be in compliance and operating in a strong and efficient program. And as I mentioned earlier, that we did not identify any compliance findings. And then lastly, finishing out with the IT, on the next slide, information technology, obviously significant part of the college operations and financial reporting. I can tell you from seeing from other institutions and amongst your peers, MCC is considered a leader. Some of you might recall, we've talked about the implementation of the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which relates to the federal awards. MCC implemented that last year, and some of the peer institutions I work with that might not have been as far along, I do know they reached out to your institution for help. And then when we look at that chart towards the bottom right there, the key activities, the goal is to move everything to the left. So not only am I happy to report there were no items that consider immediate action, we actually had more items this year moving over to the left-hand column. So 3 more that include the documentation of controls, the user access level of controls, as well as disaster recovery and planning. So, and then just the last page is just more narrative on the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, but what I've already said was we had no findings from that. So that concludes mine and Andy's presentation on the audit results. I think in summary, it was a very good audit. Management stepped up in the uncertainty and was proactive and was proactive. So I will field any questions or comments right now.
Barbara, could I pose a couple questions?
Please do.
I appreciate it, Jonathan and Andy, and I think if there was a year to have a modified opinion or adjustment, this probably could have been it. So I certainly testament to those that worked as diligently as they did. Two questions. One is current ratio is around 2.5. Do you recall just in your work with MCC it ever being as low as 2.5 in the past 10 years?
I'm just looking something up real quick, Dale. Obviously, I can't find it on the moment's notice. I do recall it. I apologize, Dale. I don't have the actual numbers in front of me, but I do recall it being lower in previous years and not so far back in the recent memory, lower than 2.5. I do recall the rise of it getting above 2 and noting that in previous board presentations.
Okay. And then the second is around the deferred liabilities. So, not to bury the lead, and you did a very good job of explaining, especially with the GASB requirements. But it appeared that the deferred liabilities grew last year by about 32 million if you account for the ERS, TRS, and OPEB.
So you're looking, Dale, I just want to make sure you're looking at the deferred inflows that Andy reported on this at 32.5 compared to the previous year of 18 million?
No, it is net positions in the, it would have been in the full financial statements.
Yep.
So
I just want to make sure I answer the question appropriately.
Yeah, I wanted to confirm that was, despite having lower enrollment, lower revenue, if you expense that deferred component, that accounted for about 32 million.
32. Okay. In the other non-current liability section, 260 compared to 229 million in the previous year.
I believe so.
Yes. That is that increase, as Dale noted in the other current liability section in the full financial statements, that $32 million increase is primarily related to the increase in the OPEB expense, as well as the pension liabilities as well went up this year. And as Andy was kind of highlighting, really a lot of those non-current liabilities, especially when they're in the pension plan and the OPEB, you can't control those on a day-to-day basis. So that's what Andy was referring to. And those did increase this year, and that's what drove the increase for your question.
Right, and you cited certainly part of it's the reduction in the discount rate.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting for the board that if you look at the sensitivity analysis in the 3 different defined benefit programs, if you had a 1% reduction, which in the case of the OPEB, we've had a 1.3% reduction over the past 2 years. But if you have a 1% reduction in the ERS, it increases our liability by 21 million. 1% reduction in the assumed rate of return for the TRS is about 9 million. Another 1% reduction in the OPEB would be about 43 million. And then if that were conjoined with a 1% increase in the cost of healthcare, that would add an additional 49 million. So if you're keeping count, that 1% variance could account for $123 million in one given year, which is about 72% of our operating budget.
And yes, Dale, I would concur with that. And I think you're highlighting a great point to understand the sensitivities of these liabilities. And a lot of times, boards and governance and other individuals will look and say, well, it's pay as you go. It's just cash out the door this year. That liability is so far in the future. But when you think about those sensitivities, and you highlighted 123 million, if those sensitivities and those discount rates and those healthcare trend factors actually do become the actual reality, that's 123 million more dollars out the door.
So are there components to either CARES 1 or CARES 2 that can buffer that?
There are no components in CARES 1 or CARES 2 that would be able to buffer that. It's not designed to buffer the sensitivities of your post-retirement liabilities.
Or unfunded liabilities.
Yes, or unfunded liabilities.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions or comments for Jonathan and Andy?
Barbara, if I may,
Yes, please, Dan.
I just want to clarify, I think I know the answer, but in terms of our participation in these pension programs, the school has no choice about that. I don't mean to oversimplify it, but because of the nature of our status as part of SUNY, we are required to be a participating employer in both of those programs. Is that right?
That would be, to my understanding, that you, as your status with SUNY, you're required to participate in the ERS and the TRS plan.
Okay. And likewise for the retiree healthcare, I'm assuming we have a contractual obligation for that, but I don't know. I know here at RTS, we do have a contractual obligation with unions, and then non-union employees receive it both if you're hired on this date or before. But I just want to make sure in my mind anyway that I'm clear what is MCC's obligation for that. Again, I'm assuming it's MCC's decisions, but if I'm wrong, somebody let me know.
Yes, Dan, on the generalized basis, you're correct. The OPEB plan is a contractually bargained, collectively bargained plan for the union employees, and then the non-union, it is included as part of their benefit structure. Very, very similar to the RTS plan.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
One clarification, because SUNY has the college has the option of going to ERS, TRS, or the optional retirement plan, which is the TIAA, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify. Yeah.
Yeah. I have no idea what that is, but it sounds like it's a third option.
Well, yeah, that's the defined contribution plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, and if you're all in need of reading material, this is all described. What Mr. Williams just said is all described on footnote 9, page 28, starts on page 28 of the financial statements.
Are there other questions or comments that any of the trustees would like to make? Okay, if there are in the future, we certainly can contact Bonadio and check in on any concerns that the trustees may have. Thank you very much, Jonathan and Andy. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say thank you very much as well. Very much appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate all the work that you've done, and we're pleased that MCC is holding the course through these difficult times.
Yes,
So
thank you.
you.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
You as well. Stay healthy, please. Thank you. We will now move to adopt the consent agenda. Unless objections are raised, the following items are proposed to be adopted and approved by consent. Some of these items address issues which have been discussed by the board in the past and/or are routine operational matters which do not involve new policy decisions. Other consent items are derived from provisions in existing prior approved labor contracts, capital construction programs, or other trustee initiatives. The consent agenda is presented for adoption as a single agenda item. Specific items may be removed by request of any board member for discussion as a part of the regular agenda. The remaining items should then be adopted as a single agenda. Board approval of the consent agenda is required. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of Monroe Community College adopt the consent agenda effective March 1st, 2021. Trustees, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion, any further discussion?
I do have a question, Barbara. I was just curious for all the personnel actions. I guess what percent completion are we in terms of the college matching the revise demand based on current headcount to the capacity that we have? And are we fully exhausting all cross-training options?
Okay, I do not have the answer to that, but I will ask President Douglas if you can enlighten us on that.
I'll do my best, Chair Lovenheim. Trustee Rykoff, I'm going to answer the best I know how, and if it doesn't answer your question, I'll reach out to my cabinet colleagues. So the cabinet is fully aware of the current hiring freeze that the trustees passed last May. And every time there is a vacancy, we review those carefully. And I can say that the balance is that we do not replace as many as come to us, so that there's a continuing decline of headcount. For example, we have a vacancy review meeting monthly. We had 6 presented and we approved 2 at that time and 2 are pending for additional information. So we continue to decline the headcount. I would like to appreciate the vice presidents in this because they say no a whole lot more than I do before we even get to that meeting. So the headcount continues to decline, but we do look at particularly revenue generating positions and their importance. So for example, teaching faculty, recruitment folks, those are looked at differently than others.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, and any other discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor? John Bartolotta? John, are you there? Okay, Dr. Joe Carbone?
Aye.
Dan DeLoss?
Aye.
Barbara Lovenheim? Aye. Alvin Martinez?
Aye.
Carla Palumbo?
Aye.
Dale Rakoff?
Aye.
Grace Tilligast?
Aye.
Alan Williams?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is approved. Thank you very much. And now we are going to go to our committees. Trustee Dale Rakoff will now give the Finance and Facilities Committee report. The board will consider these resolutions as a committee of the whole, voting on each in turn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And at this time, I would ask Hezi to present the financial report as of January 31st. Hezi.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon. Before I start, I just would like to acknowledge the work of Mike Quinn, Joe Marquez, Dolores Pastoziabro, and Karen Chin for that very well unmodified opinion that we have received from the auditors. In addition to that, I wanted to acknowledge Eileen Worley and Amy Areola because of the technology work that continues in the college led by those 2 individuals. So just wanted to point that out. Now to the report. Let's go to the first slide. Exactly, that's correct. So January was just a continuation of what we have been experiencing year to date, in that things are slow primarily because of the pandemic. But you will see that enrollment through fall, we had credit of 4,144 FTEs, reflecting a decrease of 710 or about 14.6%. This enrollment number is reflective of student headcount, that is the bodies, totaling some 14,838 individuals. Tuition, student tuition reflected a decrease of $1.4 million from last year, resulting in a year-on-year decrease of 5.4%. And that is in spite of despite of the fact that the high school dual enrollment, which last year we reported in other revenues, this year we're reporting it in tuition. Additionally, tuition reflects about a 7% increase or $376 per year for a full-time student. Total revenues, therefore, total $57.9 million, reflecting a year-on-year decrease of 6.1%, primarily due to decrease in enrollment and state aid. Now, as you know, state aid we've been hit with a 20% decline, or reduction, I should say, but that will all be most of it will be washed out before the end of this year. But right now, we're still reflecting that 20% decrease in state aid. We have also, at this point in time, acknowledged $3.6 million of the 4.6 in CARES Act that we received in what I call CARES Act 1.0. There's more monies coming from CARES Act, but at this point in time, the state SUNY and the state have not given us authorization to draw any of those funds down. Our total expenses then reach $42.8 million, reflecting a decrease of $6.1 million or 12.5%. The reduction in expenses are attributable to salaries, benefits, plus reductions in utilities and contractual services expenses totaling about $1 million. This resulted in a fund balance increase year on year of about $2.3 million. Next slide, please. This slide is just showing you those numbers that we discussed in slide format, where you see student head count 16,463 last year, down to 14,838 this year, about a 9.9% decline. Enrollment, as I said before, 710 reduction or 14.6%. Tuition, total revenue, and total expenses. Those are the numbers that I cited in the earlier slide. Next slide, please. This chart showing you what I call balance of the year key performance data. That is, what do we need to do in the balance of the year to achieve the budget? So enrollment, we have a budget of 8,972. The actual January year to date is 4,144. So we would need to achieve another 4,828 or 54% rounded to reach budget. Tuition at 44.7 budget against an actual of 24.9 would require an additional 19.8 million or 44% for the balance of the year. Total revenue is 111.6 million in the budget, 57.9 million year to date, or a shortfall to the budget at this point in time of some 53.7 million or 48.1%. And total expenses at $119 million budget, the actual at 42.8 would be a significant requirement to reach that budget for the balance of the year. With 42% of the year completed, the question is, will the remaining 58% be sufficient? That is 58% of the year be sufficient to drive 54% of enrollment, 44% of tuition, 48% of total revenues. And my opinion is that it is not likely, for at this point in time, spring enrollment reflects a year-on-year decline of some 20%. Total expenses are budgeted to reach about $2.3 million per week. So far, we are averaging only $1.9 million per week, or a decline of 17%. And I anticipate the expenses to remain below that budgeted level due primarily to the fact that we are still remote, and there are things that ordinarily we would be incurring, like utilities, a lot more utilities than we are, that just won't happen. Next slide, please. So what does this mean? Enrollment performance year to date, we've achieved enrollment of 4144. If we look at it, it represents a budget achievement for the fall of some 95%. Now, it's a split between full-time and part-time. Full-time, we are down 21.2%. Part-time, we are up almost 1%. This represents that year-on-year decline of some 14.6%, but only a budget shortfall of 5%. We did anticipate a shortfall in enrollment when we were, that is year-on-year, as we were putting together the budget. And so we are within 5% of the budget, but still below the budget at this point in time, and for the remainder of the year. Next slide, please. So I mentioned these. This is the revenue, which is a total of $57.9 million, down $3.8 million or 6.1%. And it's primarily in tuition, and that's driven by the enrollment, and state aid, which is driven by both enrollment and the reduction in state aid rate to reach those numbers. Everything else is basically balanced or slight increase. Next slide. This is what I call the good news slide. That is total expenses of $42.8 million, representing a favorable variance to prior year of some $6.1 million or 12.5%. And it is throughout the expense category. Salaries down $3.9 million or 13.6%. Benefits down $800,000 or 6%. Equipment, well, that's significant. And then contractual expenses are down $1.3 million or 20.6%. So all in all, we have expenses being very well managed, thanks to the cooperation we're getting from the college community. This performance is mainly driven by the remoteness of our operations and the VSIP and VPEP initiatives that occurred last year. Those two initiatives really are the primary reasons you see the salaries and benefits declining as they are shown. Next slide, please. Basically no change in fund balance at this point in time. And as I've said before, fund balance really doesn't begin to settle in terms of what we expect the year end to do until we reach the months of May and June. Next slide. So what's my key message? Expenses for wages and benefits are expected to remain favorable year on year. Total expenses down now at 12.5%. Wages represent 13.6% decline and benefits down 6%. The contractual expenses are down year on year, some 20.6%. Again, as I mentioned earlier, this is due to strong college community support of expense management, and that continues year to date. And my expectations are that they will continue for the balance of the year. Any questions?
I have two questions. The 25% reduction in state aid that you show.
Yes.
Is that reflective of the 20% that the state is withholding?
That is correct. It reflects the 20% that the state is holding, and it also reflects the decline in enrollment.
Okay, but all right. And then the other thing too, on the CARES Act funding, it had the funding that we received from the federal government, it had a timestamp on it, correct?
Yes.
So what's going on with the? I know.
Well, we spent all but $900,000. There is some chatter that the deadline is going to be extended. I think our deadline is like May, but we are prepared at this point in time really to account for the balance of it. We won't lose any of it. We'll use it. We'll use it all. I'm more worried about CARES Act 2.0, which right now we have not drawn down any of it, and the deadline, as is currently written, is September. Again, it is expectations are that the feds will extend that deadline.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I see. It's not a question, it's a comment. Usually, well, now we are in March. Usually we would look in the past before pandemic to April and start lobbying for what else we can get for the school. I'm assuming that because of the pandemic last year and this year, that's a moot point, or are we still going to lobby in Albany for more help?
Oh, we'll be lobbying. Well, we don't call it lobbying. We call it
Well,
advocating.
well, the same thing.
Yes, we will be advocating. A lot of it will be done virtual, but yes, there's every expectation that we will. And the good news right now, or the potential good news, is that the CARES Act funds that we are expecting may flow through entirely to the college. As you may or may not recall, last year, the CARES Act monies came in at $4.5 million, but then the state took its funding down by some $6 million. So we got really a net negative on that. It is our expectations this year that there will be a difference in that a significant portion of the CARES Act funds that is set aside for higher ed, and particularly here in New York State, most of it will flow to the college, particularly if this current $1.9 trillion federal law that's currently in the Senate, if that's passed, then we will feel very confident that we will get the CARES Act 2.0 funds that are scheduled for MCC.
Thanks.
Chair Lowenheim, may I add something to that answer? Trustee Tillinghast, in addition to that, what I would say is that the executive budget, the governor's budget this year, the proposed budget, is probably the most generous towards SUNY that I've seen in my 10 years in New York. So our advocacy is a little different, to be able to say we fully support the governor's budget for SUNY is different, because usually there's nothing in there for SUNY. So the relationship of the current Chancellor Malatras, with Governor Cuomo certainly paid off in terms of the budget that the governor included in his House One for SUNY. But we continue to have advocacy plans. The presidents, the trustees, Trustee Williams in his participation through NYSEP, and the faculty are all advocating the same push that we are saying we support the governor's budget for SUNY.
Oh, I hope it comes through.
Don't we all?
Any other questions for Hezi? I think the one question I had, Hezi, it'll go beyond your department, but knowing the trend of enrollment, I guess are there initiatives that have been modified to reflect that reality and change how we're going about trying to drive enrollment?
Well, we've had several conversations with the enrollment managers, including Interim Vice President Kimberly Mabry, and we had one just last week where we are focusing on how can we add to the marketing budget starting in the April timeframe, March-April timeframe, in order to boost summer enrollment like we did last year. And as a matter of fact, last year it was a successful program for the summer because we exceeded the budget. So there's constant work on it. I think they are looking at another potential marketing firm to help with some of the things that we are doing. But I think Kim she might be able to add to that, to my response there, if she's available.
Absolutely. I'm here, Hezi. Thank you. And thank you for the question, Chair Rika. So yes, we're having lots of conversations, as you can imagine, in enrollment management about what we can do, as Hezi mentioned, really focusing first on the summer and then fall enrollment. We did have a successful marketing campaign. I think it was, complete 3 and 3 or something like that for last summer, which was very successful for us. So we expect to do the same. We're confirming master schedule offerings, which will help us really go out and target who we want to recruit for summer. And once we have a good handle on, what the fall master schedule will look like, we know face-to-face is going to be important. And so when we have a better understanding of, what capacity we can increase on face-to-face courses, we will also use that as a marketing effort. We know some of our colleague schools are back on campus. And so we want to make sure that when the message goes out, that it is specifically, not singular, but specifically targeting students who want to take their classes back on campus. So that would be for the fall.
Trustee Rykoff, if I might add one thing to my colleagues, a specific example of an initiative that is a collaboration between academic and student services is that we're putting the finishing touches on a congratulations letter to be sent to every high school senior that is currently enrolled in one of our dual enrollment classes. And the letter will essentially, we have to wait for the financial aid folks to get the wording right, but it will essentially say, congratulations on your acceptance to Monroe Community College. And our goal is to increase the yield from our dual enrollment students who continue on with us. So that will be going out this semester to all those high school seniors that are currently enrolled in an MCC course in their high school. And we'll be able to report if that kind of initiative increased the yield from our dual enrollment.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know that there's an enormous effort that goes on that front, obviously. And I appreciate the update, because we'll always see enrollment as kind of a lagging indicator where the effort's done up front. So I appreciate that. Any other questions for Hezi? With that, I would like to forward a couple resolutions. The first, resolve that the Board of Trustees of Monroe Community College accepts the interim financial report as of January 31, 2021, found in attachment 1. Trustees may have a motion to approve the financial reports as detailed in attachment 1.
I'll move it.
Second.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? We'll move to a roll call. All in favor, John Bartolotta,
Yes.
Dr. Joe Carbone.
Yes. Yes.
Dan DeLoss,
Aye.
Barbara Lovenheim,
Aye.
Benny Martinez,
Aye.
Carla Palumbo,
Aye.
Dale Rakoff, aye. Grace Tillinghast,
Aye.
and Alan Williams.
Aye.
The resolution is carried, and we'll move on to the next. For purchases over $20,000, resolved that the Board of Trustees of Monroe Community College authorizes the purchase of items over $20,000 as listed for the month of January 2021, found in attachment 2. Trustees may have a motion to approve the purchases over $20,000 as detailed in attachment 2.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? Move to a roll call. All in favor, John Bartolotta,
Aye.
Dr. Joe Carbone,
Aye.
Dan DeLoss,
Aye.
Barbara Lovenheim,
Aye.
Benny Martinez,
Aye.
Carla Palumbo,
Aye.
Dale Rakoff, aye. Grace Tillinghast,
Aye.
and Alan Williams.
Aye.
The resolution carries. Finally, if you would refer to the information items in attachments 3, 4, and 5. Hezi, would you like to provide any additional information to the board regarding these items?
Can Linda move us up to the CIP document?
We don't have the full board packet here on the screen.
Oh, okay. The only thing I wanted to mention is that we had a we thought we had a major hiccup with the Forward Center funding. It was moved back 1 month in terms of the legislature decision making. And I learned last Friday after we probed the county about it, was that the winning bid for the work to be done there, the construction work, the winning bid did not have the full complement of the MWBE requirements that was needed, and it came too late, and so we had to move the resolution back 1 month at the legislature until the company came back with a full meeting the requirements of the MWBE, and they felt pretty confident that that would happen. But that's the only other item that's on that list that I wanted to just bring to the board's attention.
Thank you. Any other questions for Hezi? And Hezi, thank you again for all the effort, you and obviously shared sacrifice, but the audit findings were remarkable given the constraints that you and your team had to deal with this year.
Thank you.
With that, that concludes the Finance and Facilities Committee report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Rakoff. We appreciate all the hard work that you do as well. Trustee Alan Williams will now give the Personnel and Programs Committee report. The board will consider these resolutions as a committee of the whole, voting on each individually.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of Monroe Community College approves the promotion of associate professors, assistant professors, and instructors effective September 1st, 2021. You have the names of those individuals listed before you. And I'll give you a moment to review it. So, trustees, may I have a motion to approve the promotions as noted?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? John Bartolotta?
Aye.
Dr. Carbone?
Aye.
Dan DeLoss?
Aye.
Barbara Lobenheim?
Aye.
Benny Martinez?
Aye.
Carla Palumbo?
Aye.
Dale Rakoff?
Aye.
Grace Tillinghast?
Aye.
And Alan Williams, aye. The motion is approved. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of Monroe Community College approves the early retirement incentive for the following individuals in accordance with Article 50 of the contractual agreement between Monroe Community College and the Faculty Association. Again, you have those individuals, those three individuals listed before you. May I have a motion to approve the early retirement incentives as noted?
So
So moved.
Moved. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? And again, a roll call vote. John Bartolotta. John, you're on mute. Dr. Carbone.
Aye.
Dan DeLoss.
Aye.
Barbara Lobenheim.
Aye.
Benny Martinez.
Aye.
Carla Palumbo.
Aye.
Dale Rakoff.
Aye.
Grace Tillinghast.
Aye.
And Alan Williams. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of Monroe Community College approves the reappointment of non-contract professional staff, faculty, and technical assistants, advisors as listed at the ranks and titles indicated for 2021-2022 academic year, or for a 12-month employees beginning September 1st, 2021 and ending August 31st, 2022. These appointments are, reappointments are all listed in attachment 6. Trustees may have a motion to approve the reappointments as detailed in attachment 6.
Move it.
It's been moved. And a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor? And again, we require a roll call vote. John Bartolotta. Dr. Joe Carbone.
Aye.
Dan DeLoss.
Aye.
Barbara Lobenheim.
Aye.
Benny Martinez.
Aye.
Dale Rakoff.
Aye.
Grace Tillinghast.
Aye.
And Alan Williams. Aye. Any opposed?
You forgot me. I'm an aye.
I'm sorry, Carla.
You
Carla?
forgot me. I'm still, and I'm an aye.
Uh,
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Carla. My apologies. The motion passes. The next resolution, whereas the Board of Trustees of Monroe Community College appointed Dr. Deanna Burtnana as the 6th president of Monroe Community College on November 19th, 2020, and the trustees of the state of New York approved said reappointment on December 29th, 2020, with an effective May 21st, 2020, and an annual salary of $245,000. And whereas the Board of Trustees authorized the chair to enter into the first amendment to the agreement with President. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approves an amended effective date of May 10th, 2021, and an amended end date of August 31st, 2025. Trustees, may I have a motion to approve the amended start date for Deanna Burtnana?
So moved.
It's been moved.
Excuse me, Alan, we have to make a change with an effective date, May 21st, instead of with an effective, we are missing the word date.
With an effective date of?
May 21st, 2021. On the first.
Okay. Correct. I'll read it again. Whereas the Board of Trustees of Monroe Community College appointed Dr. Deanna Burtnana as the 6th president of Monroe Community College on November 19th, 2020, and the trustees of the state of New York approved the said appointment on December 29th, 2020, with an effective date of May 21st, 2021, and at an annual salary of $245,000. Whereas the Board of Trustees authorized the chair to enter into a first amendment to the agreement with the president. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approves an amended effective date of May 10th, 2021, and an amended end date of August 31st, 2025. Already have a motion to approve as reread. Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? John Bartolotta?
Aye.
Dr. Joe Carbone?
Aye.
Dan DeLoss?
John, way to come back strong. Aye for me.
Barbara Lobenheim?
Aye.
Benny Martinez?
Aye.
Carla Palumbo?
Aye. Thank you.
Okay. Dale Rakoff?
Aye.
Grace Tillinghast?
Aye.
Alan Williams? Aye. The motion is approved. Are there any other questions? Madam Chair, this concludes the Personnel and Programs Committee report.
Thank you, Trustee Williams, for a wonderful report. We appreciate the work you've done. Thank you. Trustees, unless there is further business to discuss, this concludes the business portion of the meeting. We will now go into the informational portion of the Board of Trustees meeting. I would like to begin this part of the meeting with, as I ask Hezzy Simmons to give a report on the facilities master plan. Hezzy?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening again. I'd like to just say a few words here before and then I want to share a few slides. I call it a woodshed moment with the board chair a week or so ago, when we agreed to the following points. The content of the facilities master plan is well done and comprehensive. There needs to be a better understanding of some of the assumptions regarding enrollment and staffing. She and I also agreed that the process of developing the facilities master plan was a bit lacking, particularly as it relates to the Board of Trustees involvement. At this moment, however, I want to take the liberty to applaud the work of the team led by Blaine Grindle and Jenny Giamentry, in that the team delivered one of the best facilities master plans, I believe, in the history of Monroe Community College. They did so because they felt empowered by President Douglas and the cabinet to generate an all-encompassing and rational plan. The team was allowed to dream big, and I believe that they did. On the other hand, the board chair, interim President Douglas, and incoming President Bert Nana and I have agreed to postpone the Board of Trustees' formal approval of the facilities master plan until some additional intermediate steps have been accomplished. Those immediate steps to improve process and validate assumptions begin today with this brief presentation by me. Additionally, we have established 3 open forums with the faculty, staff, and students to take place over the next 2 weeks. These meetings are scheduled for March 8th, 11th, and 12th. Members of the Board of Trustees are welcomed to attend. If need be, we will make the entire development team, available for further discussions with the Board of Trustees at your convenience. This delay in formal Board of Trustees approval will enable President Bert Nana to name her strategic plan development team and to begin its work. We believe this good work on the facilities master plan will enable the strategic planning team to get a fast start while syncing with the facilities master plan. We will officially advise our sponsor and SUNY that the formal filing of the facilities master plans will be delayed. Now, I would like to share a few slides as a reminder of what is represented by the plan as it stands. And by the way, feel free to interrupt and ask questions as we go along. Next slide, please. This slide on alignment, this plan is aligned with the principles of the current strategic plan as shown on this slide. These principles are undergirded by MCC's core values: integrity, excellence, empowerment, inclusiveness, collaboration, and stewardship. These principles are, as I said, are undergirded by these core values. Next slide, please. There were several guiding principles that we organized around in terms of developing this plan. The prior facilities master plan was somewhat stackable to the extent that subsequent projects were very much dependent on the success of the prior project. So when we found ourselves in the middle of a project that was not approved, it had a devastating impact because other things couldn't get done. The college becomes an extension. That is one of the guiding principles here, is that the college becomes an extension of the community, and the community feels a part of it. MCC has recognized that several of these systems, needed to be retooled, will be comprehended in these guiding principles. The plan represents a vision of a post-pandemic reality and is an integral part of the college's resurgence and the region's economic recovery. Specifically, the college is committed to reinforcing student success, consolidating and repurposing physical assets, creating flexible learning environments, emphasizing workshop development and skill-based training, and promoting institutional efficiency. As a multi-year roadmap focused on operational excellence and efficiency, the plan provides an opportunity to reimagine higher education around the pillars of access, affordability, and upward mobility. Next slide, please. So what were the process that we engage in determining this plan or in developing this plan? We had phase one, where we went through discovery, we did a space needs analysis, and then facilities and campus analysis. By the way, just in case I hadn't mentioned it, this work was really led by our internal team as well as a consultant firm called Smith Ltd, which has lots of experience in this area. Phase two was the master plan development, where we went through framework alternatives, draft facilities master plan, and then final facilities master plan and documentation. The strategies highlighted in this plan represent an important inflection point for the college, a pivotal time at which policy and practice must come together through creative collaboration and discourse among faculty, students, staff, community leaders, business, and industry. The college's integrated structure is not only forging new pathways, but also allowing MCC to move credit and non-credit programs in new directions. This integration remains a national model where credit-bearing career and technical education programs are integrated into the college's Economic and Workforce Development Center. This alignment has a single goal of creating skilled workers tailored to the workforce needs of the region. Next slide, please. Now, we spent a lot of time, what we call building consensus in stakeholder meetings and workshops. We had 39 sessions with over 200 students, faculty, staff, and community advisors. And you all are quite aware of the fact that we started this plan in person, that is face-to-face. Within a month of our kickoff meeting, we were in a process of virtual discussions throughout this process. But we had a list of people, as you can see on this slide, list of organizations and individuals participating. And I just want to point out to that first frame on the right side there, where you see every officer in the college standing there working on the chart. So there was involvement and as well as empowerment given to this body to develop the plan. It involved a large segment of the college community, including all of the officers. An excellent process, however, but for one meeting, it lacked board involvement. A key aspect of the planning process was building consensus for the proposed recommendations. This was accomplished through 39 meetings, interviews, and open house sessions with over 200 students, faculty, staff, and community advisors. The planning team found the MCC community, as well as external partners from Rochester, to be extremely interested and engaged in these discussions focused on the future of their community college, meaning MCC. Next slide, please. This slide reflects input that we received from surveys that were done. So you can see that we had about 41% of the respondents were students, a third from staff and administration, the balance from both faculty, full-time faculty, as well as part-time. And if you look to the right, you see some of the things that the audience felt would be important in developing this plan. So under the first one says, I would be more confident in my success at MCC if, and you see that 43.6% of the respondents felt that class scheduling is more, if it becomes more convenient. Then you see 35.5% of the student services can be improved. So those two significant items there said, this is what we want from the master plan. The scale below talks about, I will be more likely to stay on campus if I have better access. Again, you'll see in the middle there, 51.3% of the respondents felt if they had private study or workspaces available to them. Another 42% said food at more often than not. And then another 42% said comfortable furniture. So that the team attempted to take all of this input in as they try to develop, or as they develop this plan. To compound the issue, the quality of the teaching and learning spaces no longer match the academic prestige of the institution and its academic offerings. The plan recommends refocusing resources on the holistic success of the students. This investment strategy includes state-of-the-art classroom and laboratory renovations, student services consolidation, reimagining academic support spaces, and new collaborative environments to ensure MCC remains a national community college leader. Next slide, please. This slide represents the approach we took to developing the space needs. The section on the left side was looking at Brighton, the Brighton campus, and on the right side, it was the downtown campus. And what you see here is that the yellow bars represent existing space as of fall 2019, and that was weighed against SUNY standard for the fall 2019, as well as SUNY standard for fall 2028. You will note on the Brighton side here that in almost every case, we have lots of room to add services, employees, students, in order to get to the SUNY standard. So that is the standard is, we have exceeded it in all cases, with the exception of the library. That is where the standard says for our Brighton campus, we should have some 45,000 square feet. We have about 41,000. So that's the only area on Brighton where we are below SUNY standards. On the downtown campus, we didn't, because it's so new, you can see that with the exception of Edowis, we exceed the standard in all cases. After the review and Sisyphus, quantitative and qualitative data were used with SUNY space standards to generate space needs based on desired utilization patterns, projected enrollment, staffing, and academic program changes. Except for the library, the Brighton campus exceeds the SUNY standards even out in 2028. This is also true for downtown campus, except, like I said before, for the Forward Center. Next slide, please. So we did what they call a district framework for setting up this plan. One was to enhance Brighton and downtown. So what we say is that the Brighton campus, we want to migrate and expand the Applied Technology Center programs at Brighton. We want to visually and physically integrate the ATC programs into the Brighton structure. Centralize student and academic services, again, to get some synergy among those two groups, and invigorate the collaborative spaces by design. The downtown campus, diversify class offerings, facilitate local partnerships, expand student and academic services, and to increase connectivity to the Brighton campus. Where we see opportunities, we want to improve space utilization at Brighton and downtown. We want to increase this interdisciplinary collaboration. We want to enhance student experience, reduce operational costs through partnerships, that is partnerships with external bodies, as well as hopefully some SUNY universities, accommodate underserved populations, and save the high cost of deferred maintenance at the ATC. Next slide. So this slide is a capturing of what would be required if we were to merge the ATC onto the Brighton campus. One of the most significant recommendations of the plan is the migration of programs from the Applied Technology Center to the Brighton campus. This move has several implications. First, disposal of the existing undersized asset, that is the center on West Henrietta Road. Second, complete relocation of the current programs, expansion of the laboratory space and storage space, and the potential for the addition of a complementary diesel program. Finally, this move allows MCC to showcase these important career technical programs, linking them to related programs on the campus. In addition to these programmatic synergies, this move will provide consistent utility service to the ATC versus the current frequent shutdowns being experienced. The cogen plant at Brighton was just approved by the county for modernization and enhancement at an investment of $1.3 million. Therefore, we will be able to generate our own heat and hot water and provide the electrical needs, particularly when there's a shutdown or a problem with the current carrier. Next slide. So this is a very exciting piece of this overall plan relative to the downtown campus. As you can see here, there's the need or desire to really enhance the safety at the street level at the downtown campus. The downtown campus of MCC stands as an important and historical asset within the city of Rochester. It represents the college's status as a leader in workforce development and substantiates recent investments supporting both student and community transformation. The plan recommends enhancing this asset to expand the current program offerings to serve Western New York's underserved population, providing a gateway to higher education and social mobility for that underserved population. The plan recommends a multifaceted approach based on key themes of an educational gateway, community asset, and regional hub for workforce development. It's a hefty, what I call a hefty political lift to get those streets changed there, but a very inviting campus for the community should we achieve it. I want you to skip the next slide and go to slide number 12, the financial summary. What I want to emphasize here is that, yes, this plan calls for significant investments, both in class, out of the classrooms, in laboratories, with that consolidation of the ATC at Brighton. But I want people to be aware that these are capital dollars, not operational dollars. So if we decide, or if we don't get approval to spend, say, $20 million on program improvements, it's not that we have now $20 million to spend in operations. Those two bucket of funds are separate and apart. We have capital dollars for brick, mortar, technology, classroom things, and we have operating dollars to operate the college. They don't mix. But in this plan, we call for offsetting deferred maintenance to the extent of some $250 million. We're currently spending about $2.5 to $3 million annually on that. We will never accomplish our deferred maintenance, that is, bring it up to consistency in modern times at that rate of $2 to $3 million per year. The program improvements, providing for teaching needs, we have, this plan calls for, is spending some $20 to $30 million. Facilities improvements for recruiting, marketing, student success, safety, all of those items are in this plan for about $100 million. And of course, ADA compliance, 350 items identified at a cost of some $3 million. Next slide. The total need is some $383 million capital. Annual spending objectives, we said to the team that we wanted to keep that at $7 to $8 million. We will exceed that if we were able to get approval on the ATC relocation to Brighton. But again, over the period of some 10 years, this plan will still be, in our opinion, achievable and affordable by the county and the state. So the current investment that we spend annually is some $8.7 million per year. So there would be an increase again in the near term before we get back to a level of affordability. And that's my final slide. We are now open for questions, conversations, observations going forward.
If the trustees would like to attend the one or all of the three meetings that you had indicated at the beginning of your explanation, what would be a good way for us to have that organized?
Well, it's all virtual, so
Yep.
we will give you access, just like you're doing here for this board meeting.
Okay, we can do that through Linda.
Yes.
Okay, so just as a side, trustees, the dates again are, just if you would say them once more.
March
10, 11.
10th, 11th, and 13th, I believe.
Yep.
Yes, March the 8th and March the 11th and March the 12th.
Okay. And the time on that is?
I think they're all being done at noon, from noon.
Okay, noon, fine, thank you. So trustees, if you would care to participate in any of those, please contact Linda and she will make sure that you have the Zoom information. Thank you. Are there questions now that you would like to ask?
From Washington, D.C.
What? There seems to be other things going on, but do any of you have questions now? We can take them. If you have questions in the future, we can certainly contact Hezi and he will be glad to answer those questions. This is it's a wonderful plan. We also want to make sure that we understand it and that if there are questions or comments or concerns that they are addressed.
Okay. One quick question, if I may.
Yes, please, Dan.
Hezi, the proposed move of the Applied Technology Center and the build out at the Brighton campus, would that include anything about electric vehicles, training to work on them, or?
Oh, you mean at once we can move to the Brighton campus?
Yeah.
You know, that's a question that I meant to have asked Todd Odlum a couple of weeks ago. I would suspect, given the demand for electric cars, that we will adjust our training at the frankly, even if we didn't move, we would have to adjust for training to provide training for the electrical automobile.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions or comments for Hezi right now? This, as I said, this will not be the last time we can ask questions or have comments. I know it's a lot to digest.
Yeah.
Hezi, thank you very much for this time and for including the Board of Trustees in this very important facilities master plan. So,
you're quite welcome. Oh, and I just want to emphasize too that if the board requires the involvement of the people that brought this plan together, please do not hesitate. We can bring them all together and have roundtable discussions if necessary.
Okay, thank you very much. That's good to know. We definitely want, as a group, want to be involved in this plan and make sure we understand it and work with you and the team as we unfold this plan. Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to ask Interim President Douglas to give her report.
Thank you, Chair Lovenheim, and good evening. I'll make this quick. This is the week of the League for Innovation's annual conference. And I can say that because there are no travel costs, 8 different teams from MCC are invited to present. That we understand is a record because we usually can't afford to send that many people. But everything from how we can support our military affiliated students, to offering digital badges for use of the library, to launching entrepreneurs, and how we use data to make informed decisions at MCC are all presenting this week at the League. And also related to the League, the presidents of the board colleges have decided that we are going to pull together a data analytics team to do some investigation into innovations across the colleges. And our very own William Dixon has been appointed to that team. So we're confident that Director Dixon will represent us well on that national team. Also, speaking of folks doing well, our Vice President of EDOIS, Todd Oldham, Dr. Oldham, and 9 of our foundation directors have been named to the Rochester's top 100 power players who believe they will be making a difference in the recovery. So congratulations to Vice President Oldham and our 9 foundation directors. And finally, because we have to talk about COVID, don't we? I just want to say that the team that is offering our COVID tests on campus to keep us all safe and open have conducted over 11,434 tests to date, with a total of 29 positive cases out of those 11,000. So that's a 0.2% positivity rate. Our campus is complying with the mitigation efforts. We want to be open. We want to serve our students safely. We want to be face-to-face for those things that we can. And again, the campus compliance is outstanding. And finally, we just want to, all the campus wants to offer our congratulations to Chair Lovenheim for her awarding she's been awarded the Trustee Leadership Award by the American Association of University Administrators, and she will receive that award at their annual conference in June. Congratulations, Chair Lovenheim. And that concludes my report.
Thank you for that, and also for your report. And we wish everyone who is going to the league and presenting just congratulations for that. That's wonderful. And we so enjoy being part of the league. There's a lot of amazing things going on there. So again, thank you very much. I now ask the cabinet members to give their reports. Calvin Gant, who is the Chief Diversity Officer, we will start off with you, please.
Thank you, Barbara. Good evening, everyone. My report will be short because you all have it in hand. So, and I know you all read well, so you don't need for me to repeat everything that's on the list. The one thing that I will tell you is that we had 2 really good programs this month, obviously being Black History Month. We had Odell Bizzell, who did a talk on what would Malcolm and Martin teach in 2021. And we had 100 people register for that program. And then last, we had the Holocaust, let me get my mouth together, Holocaust, Genocide, and Human Rights Project bring Dr. Anderson to campus, and it was a fantastic presentation. And last I remember, we had 350 or so people participating in that webinar as well. So I want to congratulate Jody Oriel and the team that put that program together. And so that was a great event. Outside of the things that are listed on my slide, I wanted to also mention that there's been a couple of things that have come down from SUNY that I just wanted to bring to your attention, which are not mentioned in my paperwork. The first being on the 26th of February, the Chancellor sent out a 25-point proposal for diversity. And so there's a big movement from the SUNY administration about looking at diversity and discrimination. And so there's a survey coming out and a 25-point action plan that SUNY is rolling out as well. And so that is something obviously we will be tackling as we get that information here at MCC. But I'm glad to see that there's a push from SUNY to ensure that all of our students all across the spectrum have an equal opportunity to be successful at SUNY. So that will be the end of my report tonight.
Well, thank you very much. And we appreciate all that you're doing for our students. Thank you. Next is Kimberly Mackenzie Mabry, Acting Vice President, Student Services.
Thank you, Chair Lovenheim, trustees. I will be brief as well. I'll just point to 2 things that were highlighted in your attachment. I'd like to share that Dreamkeepers and the Wegmans grant continue to provide support to students in need. We're finding that students still have significant need in the areas of technology, in particular needing laptops, but also food, housing, and transportation. This spring term, and this week marks only the beginning of week 6 of the term, we've already supported over 120 students. So that definitely lets us all know that our students are still facing significant challenges during this pandemic. I'd also like to just highlight Sean Church, who is our head men's lacrosse coach, was named the Region 3 Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion EDI Ambassador. He will be representing the 21 New York State community colleges at the NJCAA, the National Junior College Athletic Association, at the national level. Region ambassadors will lead at both regional and national levels to develop a framework to inform EDI region committees. The intentional focus will be on educating, empowering, and engaging student athletes, coaches, and athletic directors in EDI efforts. So congratulations to Sean on that. And this concludes our brief highlights from the Division of Student Services. Thank you.
Brief but strong. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Todd Oldham, Vice President of Economic and Workforce Development and Career Technical Education.
Well, good evening. I also will be brief, just a few highlights from our report. The largest highlight, I suppose, would be the $660,000 grant that we have received in partnership with the MCC Foundation from the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation. And that has essentially a planning grant that will allow us to, over the next 6 months, do some pretty significant planning for what we've proposed as an extension to the Forward Center facility that's being constructed, a co-location center for workforce-related agencies and industry associations and the community. This grant, our intention is to move through this project at a fairly fast rate in order to allow us to then be submitting for some additional funding in preparation for the Forward Center's operation. At this point, we will be needing to get that kind of funding in order to operate the facility. Another piece that I'd like to highlight for you would be some of the online work that we've been doing. An interesting observation, I think, in terms of how prevalent online has become, has been with some of our HR certification classes, which are really focused toward HR professionals. We have MCC alumni, actually, that's presently in Saudi Arabia taking that class. And so that's a good example, I think, of how far the reach of all of our programming can be in this post-COVID online reality. And then lastly, 2 highlights I would point out to you is just in terms of our progression on preparing to operate the Forward Center for the community, as well as be prepared for all types of innovation. We have provided you the new logo for the Forward Center that we'll be putting a website up, and a couple of weeks there'll be one created. It'll have a virtual tour on it as well as a promotional video. We'll make sure we get that to you when those are ready. And also the logo for the new not-for-profit incorporation that we've created for Workforce Forward. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Lots of exciting news this spring, which is great in the midst of what we're going through in our society and country. This is great. So thanks very much. Hezzy Simmons, you're on once again.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. So one of the things that I mentioned to you all in the write-up was this under programming, forms and processes, digital automation. So we've been trying to automate, frankly, we've been making great progress, by the way, automating a lot of forms that we've actually been doing prior by hand. And now well over 100 of those have now been made electronically. And in the comment, Kristen Lowe, who was championing this, she says, this has been a multi-year remediation process and we are nearing the finish line. Well, today, we get this letter from the Department of Civil Rights, the Federal Office of Civil Rights. It's a memo to Dr. Douglas. I'm not even sure she's seen it yet, but it says, we have even bigger news was received this morning that the Federal Office of Civil Rights has terminated the resolution agreement of November 16th, 2017 in the matter regarding SUNY Monroe Community College and close its monitoring of recipients, meaning MCC, implementation of the agreement. The agreement was designed to resolve the complainant's allegation that the recipient's website and online programs and activities excluded qualified people with disabilities from participation, denied them the benefits of, or otherwise subjected them to discrimination under any program or activity. The terms of the agreement was intended to bring the recipient into compliance with Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. So it has now been achieved and approved by the Office of Civil Rights. Big time shout out to the technology people led by Eileen Worley and Amy Areola for all the work that they did in order to enable this. The other item was that we just learned that our HR, Human Resources, has announced that the PCA, which is a form for requesting employees, that it has gone to an online workflow. So again, getting rid of these paper and physical processes for getting things done. Significant enhancement in productivity. Then the other was sustainability. We said a long time active committee within the college, and because of the pandemic, they were forced to do things virtually. And so they've published a number of very informative green tips in the Tribune focused on sustainability at home, two of which I wanted to just highlight. One is called Holiday Sustainability. It provides ideas for incorporating sustainability into your holidays. Holiday time can increase the amount of waste we all make. According to the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, Americans throw away 25% more trash during the Thanksgiving to New Year's holiday season. That amounts to 25 million tons of garbage. So here's a couple of tips. Shop locally, reducing gas use and travel while you support local businesses. Look for gifts that don't require batteries. And if they are needed, buy rechargeable ones. Make your own gift. Be creative with your wrapping, that is using newspapers like the Sunday comics, maps, children's artwork, or usable items like scarves, handkerchiefs, or bandanas. All of these things would help in the area, in this whole champion for sustainability. So I just wanted to highlight those two things. And of course, we're continuing with our pool testing, the work being done led by Tony Perez and Jackie Carson. And they are now getting significant in volunteers because of the increase in the number of testing that we have to do on a daily basis. On a weekly basis. That's it. Thank you.
Terrific, Hezi. Thank you for this and for all the help you've given us during this meeting. We appreciate it. Andrea Wade is not here today, and Kimberly Collins is going to take her place. So Kimberly.
Thank you. I wanted to highlight the attachment that you received from our division, but before I do that, I wanted to add my congratulations to the faculty who were promoted today. These promotions are reflections of years of significant commitment to our students and a rigorous review for evidence of sustained excellence. This work isn't as easy to highlight in bullets and photos like some of the items of the divisional highlights, but they are the foundation of our student success. So thank you for letting me add my congratulations. In our highlights, we are doing a major upgrade to our advisement and graduation certification program, DegreeWorks. And one of the improvements will be that it'll be more mobile friendly to students. And also I wanted to highlight that when classes are not in session, faculty do not rest. And the Winter Teaching Institute is one of those opportunities to reflect on their craft. This year's theme was Small Teaching for Equity-Minded Education, which continues for the third year, the TCC focusing on equity concerns. One of the benefits of being able to provide professional development remotely is that we reach some faculty who weren't able to attend in the past. And this year, the Winter Teaching Institute attendance was up 22%. I want to highlight two other things. One is all the work that our dental studies faculty are doing to keep that clinic open and provide students face-to-face visits. So you'll be able to see in the pictures, our students decked out in full PPE, but in the fall, they were able to provide over 1,000 patient visits in our dental clinic. They also were transitioning some of our dental supervision by dentists to tele-dental supervision, and we're able to have 6 of these dentists now supervise on campus. So congratulations to these programs. And the last highlight, which I just encourage you to take a look at these pictures of the 4 students who won the Launch Your Business program, and they received funding between $4,000 and $12,000. And the 4 programs were Angels Touch Gravesite Maintenance, Against the Grain for a wood turning business, BRBY Duval, which is virtual reality tours for real life experiences, and Manza Wear, that is custom made, ready to wear Ghanaian clothing. So congratulations to those students as well. And thank you for the time to highlight some of the good work in our division.
We are always happy to hear about all these wonderful experiences and projects that are going on. Thank you so much for sharing them with us, Kimberly. And Gretchen Wood, Vice President, Institutional Advancement and Executive Director, MCC Foundation.
Thank you, Chair Lovenheim. I will share with you that the Government and Community Relations Department has begun the advocacy work. In addition, they've been facilitating introductory meetings with both incoming President, Dr. Deanna Burton-Anna, and interim President, Dr. Kate Douglas. They've also, from the Community and Media Relations group, have been facilitating interview opportunities for both as well. So they've been quite active. To build on VP Simmons' theme of automation, I will share that we're grateful to Dolores Pastor-Ziobro and Karen Chin for enhancing efficiencies with our protocol portal. So they are automating the protocol process to be able to facilitate that more smoothly. So we'll look forward to seeing that as that rolls out. They're testing it this week. And in institutional research, you heard Dr. Kim Mackenzie Mabry talking about fall enrollment and in the gathering of opinions for face-to-face instruction. And so we're grateful to William Dixon and his team for all of their work with surveys. They facilitated the surveys regarding face-to-face instruction with both current employees, current students, and recent students. They've also really been focusing on ensuring that our different constituencies don't get survey fatigue by doing their best to consolidate surveys and time them so that we can get maximum response to those. Finally, before we pass it along to MCC Foundation Board Chair Sergio Esteban, I will just mention that you may have noticed that the foundation is now utilizing BoardPack as well. So we'll be rolling that out in April and also making use of this technology to be able to facilitate some of the work of the MCC Foundation Board. So if you see some changes there, it's us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gretchen. We appreciate all that you're doing, and we like sharing board pack with you. So that will be great. Also, thank you to all of the cabinet members who have given their report. This has become a very important part of the Board of Trustees meeting, and we appreciate all of the work that you're doing and the fact that you are sharing it with us. Okay, as Gretchen just mentioned, I now ask MCC Foundation Chair Sergio Esteban to come forward for a report from the foundation.
Thank you very much. Hello to all of you. Great, like always, being here. I always admire your dedication and good work, and through the difficult times that we have. You know, you are really a true testament to the good governance of this institution. And I really thank you for that, as being part of this community. I'm here to report to you about the activities and accomplishments of the foundation since the last time that we met. Next slide, please. I'm going to share some nice news with you. The foundations that measures some of the foundation's performance from last year. Each year, the foundation participates in the Voluntary Support of Education Survey, which is administered by the Council for the Advancement and Support of Education, also known as CASE. This last year, in 2020, there were 22 SUNY community colleges and 106 community colleges that reported their information for this survey. And for 2020, among the SUNY community colleges, the MCC Foundation ranked, as the chart says, we ranked #1 in total support for SUNY public associates. We were last year in second place, behind Westchester County. Also #1 in unrestricted support for SUNY public associates. We were #1 last year also. And #2 in restricted support for SUNY public associates, behind Westchester community colleges were last year. So it looks like these Westchester people are tough, okay? But sometimes we win, and Gretchen tells me that next year we are going to top them, okay? So it's a little bit of a competition, which is always good. We also were #2 in faculty and staff giving. Great result. Our colleagues at Broome Community College earned the first spot again. But again, my faculty and staff, they were phenomenal. Also, I want to report that the endowment market value increased in 2020 by $2,220,266. From $15,384,581 to $15,384 from $13,164,000 in 2019. So it's great increase of $2.2 million, which is obviously very, very welcome. Obviously, the result of all this work, the result of these surveys that we participate in, the endowment and everything, is really due to the hard work of our volunteers, the generosity of our donors, and also obviously the great leadership by Gretchen and her team. We have a team in our foundation second to none. And my gratitude goes to all of them. It's my pleasure to serve as a chair in such a great organization. Next slide, please. Now, as you heard from Dr. Allman, the foundation was pleased to have the opportunity to work with him to submit their second proposal for support to the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation. And I have to tell you, I'm familiar with applications since to this organization from other institutions that I support and I work with. And it's not easy to get, I know they have a lot of money, but it's not easy to get money from them. So kudos to the work by the team that put that together. So as you know, we learned last month that we were awarded $665,000. And as Dr. Allman shared, the grant provides funds for the development of a business plan for a workforce development super center, an expansion of MCC Education to Employment Services Program, and completion of a report on the needs of the businesses side of the healthcare operations in our region. All great important aspects of our community that obviously MCC wants to be a part of the solution. Next slide, please. Also, I would like to report that the conversations with President Douglas continue, as difficult as they might be with Zoom and other virtual opportunities, but the work continues. And there have been a focus on, for our retirees and donors to introduce them to our scholarship fund for single parents, the Star Power program. Dr. Douglas has been always most gracious to dedicate her time in helping convey the MCC's message to these groups of people. And they are very well received. It's another opportunity to be engaged with them and also be able to collect some funds that they are very well welcome. And anyway, because at the end of the day, everything that we do is for our students, so this is another opportunity to do that. Next slide, please. And as I always said, thank you so much from all the directors of the foundation for all the work that you do, and how happy and proud we are to be part of this magnificent institution. So thank you very much for having me here today.
Sergio, it's always a joy for us to hear from you and from the foundation, to hear about what you're doing and how you're helping all of our students. So thank you again. At this time, we will begin the shared governance portion of the meeting.
Each of the shared governance leaders will have an opportunity to provide an update of no more than 5 minutes to the Board of Trustees. Speakers will not be able to share their allotted time with others. Student government, Brighton.
Hello, everybody. The SGA has recently helped with a climate survey along with assisting in the editing of the civilian statement. We have also recently combined with the Black Student Union to create a Black History Month art contest, and we have received some amazing submissions so far. And that contest is running until the 8th, and then prizes will be awarded. The prizes are from local Black-owned businesses. We've also been working on our fall elections and have elected an elections coordinator. And that's all for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for letting us know about what's going on. It's always exciting to hear what's happening, and we appreciate it.
Okay, student government, downtown campus.
We have had a busy month. We've finished revising the Constitution, and it is going through the final edits for the students to be able to vote on it the spring. We also are working with 40 other SUNY campuses for a spring concert April 24th, which is a great thing that we're online to be able to do this. We have finished the resolution for a leadership court for graduation, which has gone all on to the next step, which is President Douglas and Vice President Mackenzie Mabry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Denise. We hope all these projects go very well. We appreciate it. You'll let us know.
Okay, Faculty Senate.
Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of updates. On February 11th, we held a focus group to gather some feedback about the fall 2021 semester. So many senators attended and provided input. I also want to thank the 2 Senate VPs, Elizabeth Baxter and Mary Jo Best, for running those focus groups. The information was compiled into a memo and shared with institutional research, President Douglas, and the cabinet. We will be attending monthly cabinet meetings beginning in March as a way to increase communication between shared governance and administration. So I look forward to that. It will be myself and the 2 VPs. Senate has approved our bylaw amendments, and they've been sent to President Douglas for approval and eventually to you, the Board of Trustees, also for approval. Thank you to NEG Chair Mary Timmons and the committee for all their work on that. SCA Chair Becky Babcock and I met with Kristen Lowe and Dr. Bert Nana to discuss the future search for CFO, VP of Administrative Services. And we are working on a timeline, and we'll be using our successful presidential search as a model moving forward. Are there any questions? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nada. Thank you very much.
Administration?
Yes, I would echo what Dr. Perez-Kane just said, that Cabinet will now be meeting with the 3 officers of the Faculty Senate in an effort to improve communication between administration and shared governance. And I have a forthcoming meeting with the 2 co-chairs of the Support Staff Planning Council to have the same discussion. I have received, my office has received the number of bylaw changes. We will be reviewing those and indeed moving them forward to this body. And that concludes administration's shared governance report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Douglas.
Okay, and the Support Staff Planning Council provided a written update.
And yes, and so we can review that as needed. At this time, we will begin the union update portion of the meeting.
Okay. Each of the union leaders will have an opportunity to provide an update of no more than 5 minutes to the Board of Trustees. Speakers will not be able to share their allotted time with others, and we have no updates for this meeting.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. I would now like to call your attention to the biographies of our newest employees that can be found in attachment 8 and the staff recognition notes found in attachment 9. Both document the impressive credentials and accomplishments of MCC employees. I know you join me in recognizing them for their contributions to the college. I also would like to insert a personal note. I am stepping down as chair of the Board of Trustees because my husband has cancer and needs my help as caregiver. And so I'm going to stay on the trustees as a member for as long as I can, but I am going to step down as chair, and Trustee Ellen Williams is going to take over the chairmanship as of April 1st. And I appreciate all of the help that the college has given me, and I know that you will support Trustee Williams in the same way. So thank you. Trustees, this concludes the Board of Trustees meeting for March. Thank you again. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara.
Everybody, thank
Thank
you,
you, Barbara.
Barbara,
Thank you, Barbara.
for everything.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.